Alrighty, what is going on, ladies and gents? Welcome back to the channel for another market update. Hope everybody had a lovely day. And with that being said, let's dive into the TA. Alright guys, so QQ did end up popping up to a new all-time high as mentioned in yesterday's video. Now from here, we have a few scenarios that can play out. We're going to talk about them in this video. We're going to start off with SPY, QQ, IWM, VIX, the Mag 7 stocks, and then I have a few stocks that we'll call trade ideas that you can focus on over the coming sessions. All right, starting off here with QQ, guys, fresh all-time highs. All right, from here we can pull back, we can retest 536.78 down here, and we very likely are going to find buyers somewhere either here or down at the gap all the way down here. We're actually just going to change that level right there. All right, make that a green line. All right, so we have that scenario. I personally think we are going to be going a little bit higher, and then we pull back. I am just going to point out, you had an advance over here. You spent 3 weeks in consolidation. You started pushing up. You slightly made a new high from said consolidation up here at 2.7%, and then you pulled back again for another 2 weeks right there, and now you have now popped up to a new high, new all-time high, but you've only been advancing for 2 sessions here. I have to assume we're not going to do the same thing we did over here where we consolidated for 3 weeks. We had marginal new highs, consolidated again for a few weeks, and again made marginal new highs. I'm assuming we are going to get a little bit more of a pop here, and if we do end up seeing this scenario right here, I think we go way higher after that. That is just my opinion. That is how I'm looking at this. I just don't really think it makes sense to do the same thing we just did. You know, I think we're probably at some point going to hit it with an impulsive move. You could say this is impulsive. I'm just going to point to what happened over here. I'm going to point to what happened over here. All right. I'm going to point to what happens over here, over here. All right. Like over here, over here. You know, we have not been doing that. We've been doing something like over here, and you know, we all saw what happened over here. You made a slight new all-time high over here, and you fell off a cliff. Now over here, you did have a 3-day range, so I assume if it's going to play out like that, we are probably going to consolidate here for a few sessions, and then we would roll over. I don't think that is going to be the case. I don't think that would make sense after all of this time, but I will tell you one thing for certain. If we do end up pulling back here, it is a clear as day buying opportunity. If SPY does not hit all-time highs and starts pulling back, it is a clear as day buying opportunity. If SPY does hit all-time highs and then pulls back, it is also a clear as day buying opportunity. It's going to, you know, any massive move down would look something like this. But again, we had this consolidation, marginal new high, like very marginal new high over here. Okay, 1.6%, and then you pull back 2%. Back into that range, and now you're advancing again. I don't think it makes sense that we're just gonna immediately pull back here and consolidate again. You know, it can happen. Anything can happen. I will trade what is given me, just like you will. All right, you will. Tell me you will. Tell yourself you will, because you're here to make money. Keep that in mind. Doesn't matter if you're right. You're here to freaking make money. All right, I'm giving you the scenarios here, but at the end of the day, whatever happens, happens, and we have to adjust to that. All right, I just personally don't think it makes much sense to do so, and I think we have a lot of fresh breakouts that are, you know, probably going to lead to a bunch further upside. Now, we also have the video looking like this, so I imagine if this guy is going to be moving higher, I'm talking 160, 165, maybe 170, but I'm thinking just 165. You know, if this ends up moving higher, continuing higher, I imagine everything's going to go a little bit higher. All right, but you know, really, we have a few scenarios. We'll actually start off over here at SPY, okay? One of them is you don't hit new all-time highs. You come slightly underneath it, and then you come back to fill the gap. Then likely fuels a move up there, okay? And then there's going to be this scenario over here where we do take out all-time highs. Okay, come like that. Spend, you know, maybe a week or so pulling back, week or two. If we put some consolidation in after, you know, again, a larger move here. I think a larger move up makes sense before a pullback. Or we consolidate here and then push up a little bit, and then we could pull back from higher prices. Okay, that's what this would look like. Imagine, you know, we're right here. Just imagine that. Okay, and then, you know, the other scenario is we just pull back immediately down over here, maybe fill the gap. Maybe they don't give it to us because they don't want to make it easy. All right, but maybe we fill the gap over here. We probably are going to just launch. We're talking like 620, 630 from there. You know, that's really what I'm looking at. I think bulls kind of took a stand over here. I don't think it makes sense that we're just going to violate this low and come back down to the 200 DMA after seeing what we saw the past few days. It can happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I think we're probably going to be running into at least early July here. It's currently the 25th. That is, you know, we have 5 more days this month, and or I think we have 6 more days this month, and then we also have probably the first week of July that I think we are going to be running. Okay, we have the 90-day tariff pause. Okay, it's going to be coming to an end beginning of July 9th. All right, that is a catalyst that I put in. Someone told me about that today. Or reminded, I should say, you know, we all knew about it, but I think everyone's forgetting about it just like I did. But I was reminded of it today, so I put it in my calendar. All right, so that first week of July, okay, just understand the market participants who are remembering that, which, you know, they're big money. Yeah, they're probably going to start selling off. If we get a rally into that, you know, date over here, okay, something like that, like we probably are going to get somewhat of an aggressive pullback. And if we get it, you want to be, you know, position where you're not going to be hurting on it. And you want to be in a position where you can definitely use that as a buying opportunity and take full advantage of it. It's going to be a big buying opportunity when it presents itself. I'm not going to tell you how deep it's going to come, but it's definitely a catalyst that we're going to keep on our radar here on this channel. All right, if you are new to the channel, remember to hit the subscribe button. We have an update Monday through Thursday, and then we have a weekly update on every Saturday or Sunday. It's a weekly update, weekend update, whatever you want to call it, where we go over price action going into the next week, what we're looking for, and then I give you plenty of trade ideas. I'm just gonna say we're gonna say, you know, half of the value is going to be up front here at the beginning of the videos with SPY, QQ, IWM, and VIX. The other half of the value is the trade ideas. Regardless, you have your fuel to make your money. All right. But that's really what I'm looking for over here on SPY. Like one of these things to play out here. I don't know which one it's going to be. I'm going to adjust to whatever we get, but I will come straight over here to VIX, and I'm going to point out we are targeting 1623. We're still not at 1623. This daily close doesn't tell me it's probably about a bounce, but if it does, if it goes something like this, we're going to be looking for a lower high here. We're not looking for it to just crazy spike back up, you know, above the 200 here. Max, we're really looking for that. And then we'd look for that dip to be bought. And this would probably be SPY and QQ coming, you know, at least close down to that gap fill over there. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to actually give it to us. It's a ways away, but I'll definitely point out if we do see VIX start bouncing here and the indices start pulling back towards those gaps, we're going to look for buyers around them. If, you know, it aligns with QQ, well, I mean, either way, we're going to be looking for it, but especially if it aligns with VIX over here coming up, testing the daily 21 EMA, testing the 200 daily moving average, I think you're likely to reject here if tested, and then you move lower off of that. But I also think there's a solid shot. You just move lower off of that. We have plenty of, you know, minus 30% weeks over here on VIX, and I think this can turn out to be one of them. I'm not saying it does, but we have plenty of VIX crush weeks that we can really see this thing start falling off a cliff here. Okay, we got this guy over here. I think this was, yeah, just about 30%. This guy over here was just about 30%. So I know it's already looking real ugly and it's fallen quite a bit here, but you definitely look like you want to break down over here. Like I'm telling you guys, it makes sense to go higher on the indices. You know, I don't really care what happens. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing. It definitely does make perfect sense to go a little bit higher on the indices and then pull back from that. So that is going to be my bias. That's the base case, is we are going to continue coming up. I think SPY is going to test all-time highs, but I'm also very open to the possibility that they bring you 611, 612. Everyone's like, oh, it's right there. And then boom, they viciously pull you back here. And then somehow we do end up getting bought up, and then we do end up going up. All right, so that is the scenario I'm keeping on my radar. But, you know, keep in mind, July 9th, that is the day that pause is up, and I'm sure the market is going to try and freak itself out there for a little bit. So yeah, let's make some money. We're in a hot market right now. Let's make some freaking money while it's coming. Okay, and you know, I'll actually just say, guys, a little sneak peek on what we got going on later. SMCI looks like it's about to freaking explode. This is the hottest chart I can really find right now in the market. This looks like it's about to make a big move. All right, let's make that money while we have the chance, while we got that hot market, because once we do get that pullback, I can almost guarantee a lot of these breakout setups, a lot of these, you know, just hot stocks, they're going to start having failed moves. And that is not something you want to be messing with. Okay, so around that day, at a minimum, start sizing down. Okay, let's go over the levels we're going to be paying attention to. On the upside, we have 609.07, 610.78, and then 613.23 is the current all-time high. On the downside, we have 605.06, 603.41, yesterday's low, 601.75, and then that gap fill at 654. If we do pull back, I don't think you're going much lower than over here. All right, but underneath you do have 599.46. Coming over here to QQQ, you did hit it with the break and retest off of all-time highs today. I do think we can continue pushing here. It doesn't mean you're going to, but I'm definitely going to say it would make sense to me to consolidate. Maybe we even consolidate tomorrow. We don't really go anywhere, and then we push up higher off of that. If you do not do that, you're going to look for buyers off of 536.78. Okay, I know we just went over all those scenarios over there on SPY, but QQQ, that is the obvious move over there if we're just going off the daily and the 4-hour time frame. If we pull back in the short term, yes, it can come back over here, but I'll just repeat what I said. I don't think it makes sense to just continue this trend of, oh, peekaboo, pull back in the range. Peekaboo, pull back in. Peekaboo, pull right back. You know, we've done it for quite some time now. It's been very, you know, very like violent chop going on here. Okay, it's very grindy, we'll call it. You know, everybody saw the rising wedge pattern, and you started breaking down from the rising wedge pattern, and look at that, you shot right back up. You know, this market's been full of traps throughout this time, and I think it makes sense that we are finally going to go through one of those impulsive moves, such as one of these, I'm saying it makes sense to me. It doesn't have to happen, but it definitely does make sense. Like the weekly and daily chart, that is what I think it suggests. We're breaking up from this, you know, double inside week over there, inside week on here, inside week on there. I'm talking the bodies of the candlesticks there, and then boom, you're shoving it right up to new all-time highs. Yeah, I think the train is going to keep going. Okay, and it looks like, you know, we're probably going to have increasing volume on the week, but you know, in the end, weekly RSI gets back into overbought territory. That's the goal over here. That's where this is heading. And yeah, a pullback would be a major buying opportunity if we get a deep one. Okay, maybe we maybe beginning July, maybe we do start to move all the way back down. We finally do test the 200. Okay, we didn't do it over here, but if we do, like I was saying, you want to be in a position where you can take advantage of that. That could be a big payday. And you don't want to be hurting if that happens, okay? So I'm telling you, we're in a hot market right now. Make the money while it's here. Make the money while we're getting a bunch of trending moves. We're getting, you know, successful breakouts, because eventually we're going to be in the back in the market like we're over here. We're going to get a like right here, specifically these, you know, 2 weeks right here, where we have a bunch of failed moves. All right, that's that. On QQQ, guys. Current all-time high is now 543.31. Above there, watch 545. Above there, 547.50, 550. All right, but just watch the psych levels, honestly, when you're just in price discovery mode over here. That's all you really have to watch and pay attention to. On the downside, we have previous all-time high 540.81. Today's low at 539.38. If you take out 539.38, I have to assume you're at least going to come back to the 5 EMA over here on the daily time frame, which is going to align with 536.78. Expect buyers between 535.37 to 536.78. If you break underneath 535.37, we're talking the 532.17 gap fill, and I think that is something that will hold. The daily 21 is going to be right over here when that happens. So you better hold here, because then, all right, you had this move, okay, and it's going to be a false breakout to all-time highs. And we, you know, if you don't end up holding here and you lose the 21, let's just say you take out this low, like we do actually risk coming down to the 200. Do I think that's going to happen? No. But I'm also telling you right now, VIX, I still think is going to be, you know, making new lows over there. So we are still not at new lows. I think we still have some further upside to go. That's just my opinion. And again, I need to really remind you guys, NVIDIA freaking exploded to new all-time highs today. There you go. Okay. This thing's going a little vertical, and we know what happens like when it likes to go vertical over there. The 14% move the last time. Well, that's about that 165 number I was just talking about. So I don't think we're going to get 170 here. I think we're probably going to go 160, 165 on NVIDIA, and then maybe that aligns with the pullback I talk about. Okay, and VIX would make that new low. All right, so as far as Mag 7 stocks goes, guys, NVIDIA is clear as day the leader right now. The other leader that was leading started pulling back today. And you put it in a doji candle, and it looks a little extended off the 5 EMA. Notice how all these times, pretty much, you know, every few days you pull back to the 5 EMA, or the 5 EMA caught up to price. I think it's probably going to be the case, and we either consolidate or we pull back a little bit here and then, you know, move a little higher. I think it's more likely that we just consolidate. So that's what I'm thinking. Like over here, you got a very similar setup. You gave it the pop out of this range over here. Okay, you got extended for a day over here from the 5 EMA. And then boom, the next 3 sessions you traded flat, and you put in a little range, and then boom, you just kept breaking up for the range like you've been doing the whole entire time. So that's what you're watching over here on Microsoft. We're going to come over here to Tesla. Tesla, the only way you get bullish on this guy is a break above 367.71. If you don't get that, there's no reason to really be bullish on this, in my personal opinion. Anybody who is long over here on that big breakout move above 335.50 and a trigger move to 355.40. Crazy. Congrats. If you caught that one, that was for you, in case you caught that one and took your profits up here right off your key level. You know, you sold all the way underneath that candle, below the candle. So anybody, options, you got demolished. Shares, you're still underwater. That triggers more sellers. Okay, it doesn't have to sell down, but I'm telling you, if you sell down here, 313.30, and you can't hold that 200 DMA, you risk coming all the way back down here at 294.86. At that point, that's going to be right here in the golden pocket. Okay, that's where you're watching over here in Tesla. Key level, 355.40. Above there, 367.71. That's when you start really, you know, I think it's okay to trade this up to 400 plus. And then on the downside, you better hold the 200, which is right around 313.30 right now. That's Tesla. Apple, I'm telling you, it's getting ready for a big move. We don't know which direction the big move is going to happen. You know, for all we know, this could face plant. Daily Cloud, if it does end up moving up tomorrow and you break above right here, all right, right there at 204.50, then I assume you're going to get moving to the upside here. And, you know, you'll have a breakout. You'll be breaking above some resistance there. And yeah, I think we are probably going to be seeing a move to the upside. But at the end of the day, we don't know which way this wants to go. You definitely have, you know, a bunch of choppy price action going on. It's consolidating. It's compressing. Compression leads to expansion. It's going to expand. We don't know which way. You're underneath the weekly 21. It looks like price, honestly, is getting ready to move up. But we also know this is Apple. This can go either way here. And if the market's going to be moving up, I don't know. Maybe this thing actually moves up when the market moves down because it likes going opposite the market so often, okay? On this big pop day right here, you know, the market, I'm pretty sure, was selling. It loves going opposite to the market. So just keep that in mind. It goes opposite to NVIDIA. Amazon, you're still just in this flag. I don't think it makes sense to break down. This is, you know, one of the names, just like NVIDIA, that suggests to me, I don't think we're going to be breaking down right away. I just don't. I think we got a little more juice in the tank here for things to get these explosive moves. But hey, I'm open to anything. I do think you're going to be holding the 200 DMA and the weekly 21 if you come back and test it. But I also think it makes sense to push up from this now 2.5 week range. You have a little bull flag going on. I think it makes perfect sense. Okay. That is Amazon. Coming over here to Google. What level we tell you guys to watch today? 172.91. If you can get a daily close above the 200 DMA, which is right above, just about at 173.50 right now, you get a move above that, we're talking 178.13, and then 183.63 is very likely going to be on the table. All right, and that is it for the Mag 7s, other than our boy Meta. What is this stock? MTA. That don't look bad. That was an accident, but that don't look bad. That's a big old base. Hey, I'm not going to trade this guy, but I accidentally stumbled upon what looks to be a banger. Look at that big base. Let's see if this thing breaks out from the base. I'll keep you guys posted on our accidental find over here. Doesn't look bad at all. Okay, I'm not telling anybody to trade it, but I don't think that looks bad at all. MTA. All right, but our boy Meta over here, guys, I still don't think it would make sense to pull back and have this massive weekly upper wick here. I just don't. We just had a double inside week. This was an inside candle to over here. This was an inside candle to over here. All right, we have a clear as day defined range. We had traps that were laid inside that range with, you know, almost a breakout over here, and then you swept the lows, and then you push straight up to the high. I find it very unlikely that this is going to be a false breakout. If you could push through 716.58, today's high, we're talking a straight move up to 725. Above 725, we're talking 740.91. If the market is to pull back, I think it makes much more sense to do so up here. Okay, maybe you get something like that going, and then boom, you have your move going up for that second wind. Okay, so that is Meta, but the gap fill is down at 699.05. I still don't think it makes sense to come down here, and if you do come down here, I think it might get bought up by the end of the week, which means if you make the move tomorrow, maybe it gets a recovery by Friday. Again, look at the weekly chart, guys. This thing does not look bearish. It does not look like, you know, it's just going to have a false move up there. You know, you're not really going to find a range breakout like that, like something that gets that far away and you just produce a massive wick. Like, yeah, you have a wick over here. You didn't get the breakout. You didn't. You have this 2-week range over here. You went a bit higher there. Then you pull back and then you start rocketing. You know, but as we can see right now, like, this is just consolidation. This is a bull flag right here. This is consolidation after a massive impulsive move up here. It's likely going to lead to another impulsive move. All right, so that's that. Now, as far as trade ideas go, I already did give away the top setup that I'm seeing right now, guys. This thing is looking phenomenal. This thing looks like it wants to break above 47.80. And if it does break above 47.80, this thing can expand. All right, this weekly candle, we're only up 2.85% on the week. As we see, when this thing starts going, it could get, you know, we're talking 30% weeks over here, okay? Over here was a 40% week, but I'm thinking, you know, 25 to 30%. It's possible. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if it does, we're coming up to 56.19 this week. We got 2 sessions left, which means 20% day. All right, it means all in one go, you get up there, or 10% day, 10% day. We can see when this thing wants to go. It definitely can have these 10 to 15% days. We've seen plenty of them. We're going to say 10 to 20% days. We've seen plenty of them. And once it starts going, once you get the gap up, the gaps don't like to be filled. You have a gap up over here, it didn't get filled. You have a gap up right there, it didn't get filled. Gap up right there, it didn't get filled. You had a gap right there, it didn't get filled. Gap right there, it didn't get filled. Gap right there, it did get filled. It did, but it was the top. All right. So, you know, if we see a gap up tomorrow, you don't want it to get filled, is what I'm getting at. You have a gap up right here, didn't get, I don't think it got filled. You have a gap up right there, it didn't get filled. All right. It just didn't. So we don't really want to see it. You can see over here, oh, big gap up. It didn't even come freaking close. All right. And then boom, you closed here. You gap up over here. It didn't even come close. Gap up, didn't come close. Gap up, didn't come close. It's a big gap right there. It didn't come close. So if you do see a gap up tomorrow and it closes, it comes down to the closing price, Henry's trade idea is done. Okay. I want you to take the L or take the break even. I mean, you know, I'm going to be up a little bit here. Okay. And maybe if you guys took that with me, or, you know, just took it on your own, then maybe you are going to be up a little bit. But, you know, if you see a move up here and boom, you come all the way back down here, it's time that it's not going to go just yet. Okay, it's probably going to be in consolidation, but it's definitely a setup worth putting on your radar. I know it's a crap company, so, you know, I'd call this an A++ setup, but it's a crap company. Well, it's not a crap company. You know, NVIDIA is involved with this company, so I guess it can't be crap. But we've had sketchy things go on. Okay, so demoted. Okay, A++ down to A+. We're taking away your plus, mister. Okay, that's SMCI. Next one I'll put on your radar is over here on Uber. And actually, guys, I just realized I didn't go over IWM. I still think the weekly chart, it makes sense to you know, hold this area and push up off the up to 217. But I'll tell you right now, just my DD over here, bearish engulfing candlestick on the day. That was the last one. This was the second to last one, and the last occurrence other than that was right over here. All of them led to lower prices the following day. Okay, and you know, honestly, the next few days, you got bought up over here. Next few days. So I'm just saying, I think we could at least see lower prices tomorrow over here on IWM. And maybe that hints we are going to get, you know, a pullback in the short term here, and then everything gets its second wind after that pullback. I don't think it makes sense for stocks to fall flat on their face. SPY is right underneath all-time highs. If they do fall flat on your face, it's a massive buying opportunity. And, you know, if we get this move down here, that is where I am going to say it is a solid bet to size up down there. Okay? But I don't think that makes sense. I think we are going to see VIX make new lows. I think this thing either makes new highs, or at least we get right underneath it, 611, 612, and then we pull back because everybody's sitting there watching the same exact thing, and there's going to be supply sitting there. You have a lot of, you know, a lot of stuff going on up here, guys. Rejection, 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 rejection. False breakout, and then boom, you fell down. If it's going to be this scenario over here, we're going to consolidate for, you know, 2 to 3 sessions, and then we start breaking down and we roll over. Okay, so if we get right up here underneath all-time highs and we start doing that, well, consider it. If we make slight new all-time highs over here, 215, 615, 617, all right, in between there, and we print these, all right, this range going on here, you know, 3 to 4 bars. Well, consider that might produce your pullback there. Okay, but I just don't think it's going to happen. Again, I think we have a lot of hot setups right now that are probably going to continue. On the pullback, Uber. All right, Uber is going to all-time highs, 93.60. This dip is going to 100% guaranteed. Nothing's a guarantee. Okay, but we're going to say a 99% guarantee, a Henry guarantee. 99% though. Okay, you got to have some room for error. 99% guaranteed. This is going to actually take out 93.60. So this dip is guaranteed a buying opportunity for that move. I'm going to mark out this level right over here. Okay, we're going to take away 87 right there. Pull back to 88.38. That's where you just broke out from. Another level to watch is 89.88. Okay, but I'm also going to say 88.38 is, you know, where you actually just broke out from. That's your double bottom neckline right here. Okay. I know, very pretty drawing we got there. I know, it's beautiful. Uber's got some nuts on him. Got to look at the balls on this guy. Oh, the cojones. All right, this guy is going to run for it. He is making a run for it. But real talk, guys, you know, this is a real clean setup over here. You had this nice bull pennant. You had a double bottom breakout just now. This is going higher. This is taking out 93.60. I'm talking 95 to $100 is on the table here. That's a $6 double bottom right there. We only had a $4.50 move. A $6 move brings you up here to 95 bucks. I think 95 is incoming, and potentially we push straight up to 100 bucks. Over here you got the breakout. You went another $5 from that high. That would be the equivalent to us coming up to 98.50. All right, so Uber, keep it on the radar on that pullback. You can honestly buy it now, or you can wait to see if you get this test of either 88.38 or 89.88. Oracle, you know, honestly, this is more sound than just breaking out here, guys. The more time you spend in a base and consolidation here, the more decision, you know, the market is making. It's a better decision. It's like you sitting on your, you know, sitting on your hands here. Oh, do I want to make this big ass decision right here, or do I want to rush into it? Well, if you're still thinking about it a week from now, well, yeah, it's probably a good decision. The market, it could have pushed up right away over here. It didn't. It could have pushed up right over here. It didn't. It's taken more time to decide. Once you get this thing, and then now once you take out 216.93, today's high there, this thing is ready to go. Okay, and I think we're getting 225, 230 on this move. This consolidation here is 15 points, 14 points. Above here, 14 brings you straight to 230. So I think 225, 230 incoming over here in Oracle. Look for the breakout. AVGO. Similar to Meta over there. I don't think it makes sense. But at the same time, I don't think it makes sense to really sell all that much. At the same time, as long as you close out near where you are on the week over here, like this thing is probably just going to continue chugging along. Or you pull back, open next week down here or something like that, get a pullback to start off the week, and then you push up through the highs. And, you know, we're talking 280s on the table next week. Regardless, take out today's high at 269.87, talking 275, and then 280. That's what we're paying attention to. Meta, I already talked about this one. I think it's still going to go. This is a break and retest until proven otherwise. Maybe you do fill the gap, maybe don't. I don't think you will. Same thing as AVGO. I don't think it makes sense over there to really sell after we have been waiting for that breakout over there, and you know, it looked real funky to get a nice upper wick to close out the week. So I don't think it's going to happen. PayPal, still watching this one over here. You have a bearish engulfing candlestick technically on the day, but I'm just going to say you're consolidating this 2-day range. All right, above 74.15, we're talking 75.27, and then 76.46, which are on the 200 DMA. You didn't hit it last time, and then we're talking $79 to the 0.618 Fibonacci retracement level. Still over here on the weekly time frame, guys. You know, this is a month and a half here, month and a half of consolidation. This thing's going to break up. All right, you can see the weekly cloud starting. It's not flipping yet, but if you get this move through 75.27, I assume that is going to start flipping. And then you're targeting 76.46 and then 79. Crowd, I still think this thing is going to go. I think it's taking its time, but I think it's very likely that this is, you know, either going to continue consolidating here and then push up next week, or you're going to get a ripper this week, okay, into, you know, 510. Crowd. Hood over here, guys, you're currently underneath 85. Target has been hit. I was supposed to see. I took it off yesterday. I didn't hold for target. It's okay. You know, it would have been an extra few grand there to make, but at the same time, when I get close to targets, and like, you know, my targets are my targets because I know sellers are going to be stepping in there. I know they're likely to step in there. I know that's where we have supply. This is the IPO all-time high that was sitting up here. You're probably going to $100. Probably 90 to 100 on the next leg. But I think it makes sense. Hit it with something like this. I think it makes perfect sense. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to buy the dip over here around, you know, we're going to say 78 to 80 bucks. Rocket Lab. All right, Rocket Lab. I told y'all about this. I hope you guys banked with me this week on Rocket Lab. I hope you did. But, you know, now it's hit all-time highs. You have a new all-time high, 34.50. You're starting to pull back. I'm watching this on the pullback over here. I think it's going to be bought up in the short term. If we retest 30.78, I think it gets bought up by the end of the week. I think it makes sense to close the weekly candle around 33.34, previous all-time high, or higher. So I'm watching that. All right, that is what I have for you guys today. SOFI is another one that looks a little heavy, a little extended over here, and I do think we could pull back over here 1520 to 1550. All right, 1520, 1560. That's what we're going to say over here. But, you know, weekly candle's looking good. Daily chart is just looking a bit extended to me. So it looks like we can pull back, but it's something just like Rocket Lab. I am keeping my eye on the pullback, and I want to add August calls on Rocket Lab on that pullback, which is probably going to be tomorrow. All right. With that being said, guys, TTWO, you also did get the break and retest off of current all-time highs over here. And I'm not saying it is going to immediately, you know, get respected there. But if they take you back through 245.08, I think you go straight up to 250, 255. All right. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Please remember to leave a like if you enjoyed today's video. I do my best on these videos to give you guys stuff to trade. All right. And your game plans over here every day. And all I ask for is a like, guys, so we can grow the channel. This channel, in my mind, it should be 50 to 75,000 subscribers at least at this point. I've been doing it for years. I've been putting a lot of value out there for years. I don't know why the YouTube algorithm hasn't picked me up. Maybe I'm talking wrong. Maybe my thumbnails and titles are wrong. I don't know. Maybe I got to pick up the clickbait. Maybe my clickbait sucks. I don't know. All right, but please try and help me out with a like, and you know, if you want to talk in the comments, feel free. Comments help out the YouTube algorithm as well. With that being said, I hope everybody has a lovely rest of their night, and I will catch y'all in the next one. Peace.